Thank you for your time today attending the webinar for Unlocking the Power of Data Analytics for Nonprofits. I'm Larry Blackburn, CEO for Data Intelligent, and I have Lucinda Nord, our Customer Success Manager, presenting with me today. So today, we want to talk about what it means to be data-driven, key steps toward data analytics maturity. Lucinda is going to give examples of customer data analytics solutions, and then we'll conclude with key takeaways. So as we work with organizations, we see some common challenges for data analytics with these organizations. First one is data is difficult to access when we need it. It takes a lot of time to assemble the data and lots of manual steps. Limited staff resources with the right skills. We are seeing tight budgets across many organizations and difficult to have the resources with the right skills. And the third challenge is varying versions of the truth due to silos, whether it be silos within the organization or data siloed in different systems, making it difficult to have one source of the truth. And the last one is the one we want to focus on today. How do we become data-driven? So we will talk more about that. So we hear the term data-driven a lot, and what we want to do today is give a definition to that. So we've done some research and come up with a definition for data-driven. The first part of the definition is data-first thinking. What this means is that as you look to make plans and decisions and strategies, start with data and see what the data is telling you and make your decisions and strategies based on what you see in the data and make a truly data-driven decision. The second part of the definition is that data analytics is integrated into all workflows. And if you look at the picture, right, imagine that those cogs are the data flowing through your organization and enabling the collaboration and work across your team with data. So now that we've defined what it means to be data-driven, what are the reasons and benefits of being a data-driven nonprofit? And again, through our research, we've come up with 4 benefits that I'll talk about in a minute. Those 4 are evidence-based, accountability, efficiency, and planning and forecasting. So the first one is evidence-based decision-making. And what this means is that for us to make data-driven decisions, we're using reliable information that perhaps other people have made or used to make those decisions. So there's evidence for using the information. We can better understand the needs of communities as we look across different data sources and really understand what the needs of our communities are. We can also assess the effectiveness of our plans and decisions, and then it helps us to allocate limited resources. The second benefit is accountability. As nonprofits, we all have a responsibility to the community and donors as we provide our services. And through this accountability, we can then demonstrate the impact that we have through our programs to those communities and donors. And then finally, through this process of being transparent, we build trust with the community. The third one, we use data to identify opportunities for improvement and being efficient with our resources and also being effective with our programs. The fourth benefit is using data to identify trends and patterns in the community for planning programs and using, again, that pattern and trends to define those programs. And then being able to forecast needs for funding, staffing, volunteers, and other resources. So as we look at the concept of being data-driven, it is a multi-step process, and we call this process your data analytics maturity. And through our experience and research, we come up with 4 stages to this maturity curve. And data-driven is at the top of the curve, and that's the goal that everyone wants to attain, is to be data-driven, but it's not a overnight event, right? It goes through stages. And so I'll go through each of the stages here. The first one is being data aware. And here we are aware that we need to use data, but we have manual, non-standard reports. And because of that, decisions are rarely driven by data. The second stage is data proficient. Now we are proficient on producing standardized reports. Maybe we use tools like Excel and some other tools like that to start producing those standardized reports, and using data for historical trending and more about confirming what's happened. But now we're able to produce that more proficiently. The third stage is being data savvy. Now we're using data insights to make some decisions. We may be using tools like Tableau that give us those insights, and we can use them to make decisions. But even at this stage, the data can be inconsistent and often in silos. And then the final stage is being data-driven. As we defined earlier, this is about data-first thinking. Data analytics is integrated into all processes, and then data from all sources is available in a unified data platform. So there are many challenges to being mature in your data analytics maturity and being data-driven, right? And so some of the things we've talked about already, access to data, integrating multiple data sources, lack of time, resources, and funding, and data ownership governance, and then user adoption. So there are some principles that we've identified to overcome those challenges to be data-driven. And we've summarized them here. I'll go through them in a little more detail and explain those further. So the 3 key principles are: make data analytics transformational, invest what you can, establish a unified approach. So the first one, make data analytics transformational. What this means is that you connect the data analytics to your organization's mission and results so that it enables those missions and results. It's not a one-size-fits-all. You want to tailor your approach to the organization's mission and also where you are on that maturity curve, and then develop a roadmap for building a data-driven organization. Second principle is invest what you can. And again, we know that budgets can be tight. And so what you want to do is to use an iterative approach and focus on high-value solutions. And then through that iterative approach, you can get some immediate results with some high-value solutions, which can then show that that there is value in investing in more. And then you want to balance the cost-effective and timely capabilities. And then finally, you want to establish a unified approach. You want to remove silos organizationally within your systems and make it a expectation that we need to have collaboration across the organization. And we want to empower those on the front lines with access to data to make those frontline decisions. And then finally, it's important to centralize your multiple data sources into a unified data platform, which will then enable easier access to all the data that's needed. So now I'm going to turn over to Lucinda Nord, who will give examples of customers and data analytics journeys.
Thanks, Larry, for that foundational information about the challenges and first steps nonprofit organizations can take in data analytics. Having spent my career working in the nonprofit space as an executive and a senior leader, I understand the challenges firsthand. I'd like to revisit a few of them more specifically. First of all, in terms of access to data, we observe that nonprofits often receive government grants or foundation grants that will require a specific software. And sometimes that software actually limits the access to the data. You put a lot of data into the system, but it's hard to get that data out of the system. Or perhaps your nonprofit participates in a collaboration where maybe many organizations are contributing to the data. What we see most often, though, is the issue of multiple data sources. We observe that nonprofits are maintaining data on tick sheets with paper and pencil, to lots and lots of spreadsheets on individual laptops, to disparate software that tracks human resources, fundraising, donors, client services, program and events. And it's very difficult to pull all of that together to show how your donors and volunteers actually impact the families or the mission that you're trying to carry out. And of course, nonprofits deal with the resource constraints of not having enough time, money, or people, and especially at certain times of the year when they have peak need. And what we observe at Datatilligent is that even when nonprofits have resources, they may not have the staff with the expertise to carry out the analytic work. And so that's connected to the ability to train other staff about the importance of data, how to use data, and to really do it in a cost-effective way. Larry talked a little bit about the data ownership and governance issues, which we observe, quite frankly, as very complicated when you're trying to do collaborative impact work. And so it's really important to have those conversations from a policy governance perspective. So we see these themes in the steps that nonprofits take to make their data transformational and invest what they can and establish that unified approach. And in this next section, I'm going to share a little about how we work with nonprofits to address their challenges. And we work with them as partners along the way. So let me tell you a little bit about John Bonner Neighborhood Center. This is a very innovative community center that offers comprehensive two-generational services for children and adults on the Near East Side of Indianapolis. They are leaders in making and measuring impact on the families they serve and their Near East Side community, both in terms of community development and economic development. They received a multi-year Promise Neighborhoods grant, as well as many other grants and major initiatives in the community. Their staff leaders saw the need and the opportunity to show impact through improved data. So before we get into their solution, let me explain a little bit about this concept of a unified data platform. And this is just a sample of how most nonprofits have lots of different data sets represented over here on the left in terms of client data, member data, financial data, fundraising data about donors and funders, or the grants that come in, social media, and different programmatic data. All of those typically live in different systems that we will then pull in to what we call a data lake. And for that data lake, we use a software called Snowflake. And then from that data, our team builds data sets that may pull fields from multiple original sources to create perhaps a fundraising or a marketing effectiveness kind of data set, or a family stability data set that actually pulls child information from one system and family and parent information from another system. Then our team of solution engineers will actually work to visualize that data after they've created the data set into dashboards. And for those dashboards, we use two of the systems we use are Power BI and Tableau. So now back to John Bonner. I'll tell you a little story about what they were needing. Here is an example of an early warning dashboard created to track family success. One of the challenges faced by this community center is their multiple disconnected data sets. Like many multi-service centers, they were touching families through a variety of services that they offered, and they needed to be able to identify the families in need of intervention before a full-fledged crisis. They also wanted insight into which combination of service interventions lead to family success best. So who was using the data? It was their program directors. And what they wanted to do is to be able to identify those families fairly quickly. And then through the integration of those multiple data sources, we were able to create a solution that provided an overview of the key performance indicators and the early warning categories that the staff identified. This solution also allows the staff to drill down to specific families and to individuals to identify who needs a touch point right now. This is just one of the examples of the work with them at John Bonner. Next, let me tell you a little bit about the Women's Business Development Center. This is a Chicago-based nonprofit that helps grow and develop women-owned businesses. They provide Women Business Enterprise certification for a 9-state region, host events, and provide services to grow childcare businesses and to support veterans. They administer a range of grant-funded programs and wanted to show their impact across Illinois. So this is an example of how we worked with them to create self-service reporting in a Tableau analytics environment. These types of analytics allow both managers to monitor their services across the state, but also to help them tell their story better. So they wanted to look at certain questions that they wanted to be able to answer. For example, how are they reaching certain demographics? And how does that compare and contrast to the census distribution for that area? So one of the elements that you see is that we were able to pull in third-party data through the census to overlay that with the WBDC data. Another question is, are they actually having an impact in rural areas of the state? So we could actually map that across the state according to zip code and to other geographic areas. Are they having an impact with veterans or minorities, and which business industries are they most active? These are the kinds of questions that program managers wanted to be able to answer. So the dashboard includes filters that allow staff to pull certain data that they might need both for planning or for a report that they have to provide to a funder or to a community planner. My third example is from where I live in Indiana. Many communities across the country have what they call food councils. Might be called something different in your community. It's a local collaboration. The pandemic illustrated the incredible need for food, and the Indy Food Council had already prioritized increasing access to healthy food to residents who live in food deserts. And you know what a food desert is. Those are the areas without a grocery store, or perhaps where the only store might be a convenience store. One of the solutions was to create a ride program to the grocery stores. They had certain grant and donor restrictions about geography and the fund uses, and they needed to demonstrate that they were not paying for services out of county for a particular funder. Additionally, they wanted to demonstrate that their proof of concept with this innovative program was in fact meeting the needs of the most in need in food deserts. So the Indy Food Council partnered with Datatelligent to bring additional expertise and to create these data analytics. So let me tell you a little bit about that program. So people were living in food deserts without access to healthy food, and they were allowed so many rides per month to get to the grocery store. And what we discovered is that the demand exploded, and we were able to gather that data and start to map it. So let's show you what we did. Let's first look at the top level stats. The dashboard created in Tableau allowed the leaders of the Indie Food Council to see a high level view of their work. How many rides were there? What were the total dollars spent? And how many unique riders were there in a given time period? Then we were able to look at each of these data points by both time and zip code. So you can see, again, a very busy dashboard with a lot of data, but it's exactly what the leaders of the Indie Food Council for this program needed to see. We were able to compare their data to the census data related to poverty, to the SNAP utilization, disability, and other factors. And then to add more context to the story, we brought in the demographic and socioeconomic data. We were able to make it simple to display the data from multiple data sets with a single filter. And you see that filter over there on the right. In this view, the race or ethnicity data is selected, and it allowed the team to understand the breakdown of the population by specific zip code. And again, the intent of this was to see, are we meeting the need of the most in need as we anticipated? Next, our team was able to create a layer that illustrated the food desert locations and which stores were visited. By incorporating the SNAP store location data into the visualization, the team could see the average number of unique stores visited by each rider, the average distance traveled to a store, and the number of unique stores visited. Adding the food desert shapefile helped paint the picture more clearly, highlighting the areas of the city that had no access to healthy food options. The filter on the right allowed the user to zero in on one particular element. Now, I want to share with you the best outcomes of this data exercise with the Indie Food Council because they're amazing. First, the Indie Food Council was able to show the ride vendor that they had contracted that a certain number of the trips were actually out of area and precluded in the contract. So they were able to go back to that vendor to have the amount of the unauthorized rides refunded in order to be able to serve more people. Secondly, they were able to show that they were in fact reaching the hardest hit, most in need clients who lived in food deserts. And this process of showing that impact allowed them to be able to be successful in applying for subsequent grants to be able to continue this program. So with that, this is just a few examples of our work with nonprofits at Datatelligent, and I will turn it back to Larry.
Thanks, Lucinda, for sharing those examples of customer solutions and how they have helped the organization become more data-driven. So in conclusion, here are some key takeaways from today's talk. First, data-driven means data-first thinking and using data to help you make those decisions. Some of the benefits for nonprofits for being data-driven: you can make evidence-based decisions, be accountable to your communities and donors, become more efficient, and plan for the future. And some of the key principles to become data-driven and overcome those challenges is to make data analytics transformational, invest what you can, and establish a unified approach. And through that, we can make our communities better through the use of data. So before we close, I want to give a quick summary of who we are as Datatelligent. And our mission is, through our unique approach, we remove barriers for organizations to make data-driven decisions. And our approach is called a data analytics as a service. And what that means is that we use a subscription approach. Through that, you get access to solutions and people. And through those solutions, you have better access and use of data to inform your decisions and improve your outcomes. Thank you for your time today. Our contact information is on the screen. Please reach out if you have any questions or would like to have further discussions on how you can use data for your nonprofit organization. So thank you very much. And that is the end of our webinar.